Good afternoon, happy Tuesday, and we're live from Melton Mowbray. And what's the weather like? I always like to start with the weather. Anyone would think I was blooming weather reporter, but it's miserable, isn't it? Miserable. It is here anyway. But I like them kind of days. I think I said the same last week. Nice rainy days mean that we can just sit in and sew. So what are you up to? I'm getting ready for the show at Ali Pali, which is in a couple of weeks, and I was thinking I'd got an extra week, so I was all kind of going along, and then I realised Dave told me that it was a week less than I thought I'd got. So we're a bit busy at the minute, but hey, that's how we like it, busy. So yeah, getting ready for the show. What else have I got to tell you? Writing patterns. So I'm going to take some new patterns there. So I'm trying to get those done ready for the show. But I actually do work better with a deadline. So it's all good because then I get it done. I said to somebody the other day, where I work at, where I have my therapy room, I said something about I'm a little bit lastminute.com, and they couldn't believe it. She said, "You're not that kind of person, are you, Deb? You don't strike me as being last minute." And I was like, oh yeah. So I obviously give off an air of calm and in control. And of course I am, but it's all a bit last minute. I mean, I say last minute, I've got 3 weeks left, haven't I? That's ages away for me. So what we're going to do today is we're going to make this Makower stocking, Christmas stocking. So this is a panel. It comes as a panel like this. So this is how it arrives with you. So it's a lovely quality, just as you would expect Makower to be lovely quality fabric. 100% cotton, of course. So you get the front and the back of the stocking. You get the cuffs, which go across the top of the stockings. You get a bit of fabric here to make the loops with, you know, so you can hang it up. You also get these tags, which are nice. So you could put your own, you know, either use a fabric pen and write on there, or you could embroider somebody's name on there. Kath is saying, "It's miserable here too, Debbie. I've just cut off the Christmas stocking. I've just cut out the Christmas." Oh, brilliant. So yes, you bought one at Festival of Quilts. Brilliant, Kath. Oh, that's fab. And obviously that's the other side, and then you get another cuff and another bit for the loop. So everything you need is on there. Now, when I did this Christmas, the advent calendar last week, the instructions were on the panel, if you remember. So it was nice and easy to follow. This one is a separate pattern. So it's a Makower pattern. I haven't written it. The only one I can find online at the moment has got that image on it, which is the Santa Express. But it's the same pattern. The panel is exactly the same, just a different image. I'll try and find one for the snowman, but the actual pattern and instructions is exactly the same. So I've had a look at this morning, and there's a few bits that are a bit tricky to understand. So I thought, well, actually that's quite good because we can go through it and maybe work out a quicker or better way. You don't have to follow that, but it's a guide. And if you buy the kits today, or to any point on my website, you'll get that pattern with it. The pattern comes in the kit. So the kit will be the panel, enough fabric, the blue spotty fabric to line your stocking, and H640 to make the stocking. So you get everything and the pattern. So it's really good. So they're on the website if you're interested, or you can just sit and watch me sew. So I'm going to put this laptop down for a minute because it must be working all right, Dave, but it looks very glitchy on my screen. Is it all right?
Carry on.
Carry on, says Dave, the cameraman. Let me put that over there. So what I'm going to do is start with, I'm just going to have a look at this lining fabric, because what I did earlier was cut it all out ready. But before I start, I'm just going to make sure I've cut this lining fabric to the right size, because when you follow the pattern, let me get this stocking here, you cut it out And the seam allowance is more than normal. I always work to, and we tend to, don't we, work to a 1/4 inch seam allowance, but the seam allowance for this pattern is 1 centimetre. So what's that, Dave? 1/2 inch? Centimetre, just less than 1/2 inch, isn't it? We don't normally work to centimetres, do we? Are you with me, Dave?
I'm with you.
So, so there's my panel, and what you've got to do is trim the backing fabric, because obviously you supply your own backing fabric, to the same size as the stocking pieces.
Can
So,
we just send a message to Kath?
yeah.
Can we tell her that, well, you can hear me, I don't know, but hello Kath.
She'll be able to hear
This is
you.
work.
Oh no, I don't know if, yeah, go on.
This is work.
Oh,
I am working for Debbie today.
because I've got the mic on, she might not hear you. Yeah, Kath's probably saying Dave should be at work. He calls this work, being a cameraman and chatting to his ladies. Oh, I know, but no, he's got the afternoon off, Kath. Well, I say the afternoon. He's come home for an hour to film me, because it's very tricky doing it yourself. What's that? I hear you say you actually needed Dave to do it. Then thought I could manage without him.
I hope she's paying you, said Kath.
What's that? So I've cut the panel out, the stocking, and I've got my H640 here. So the H640, we talk about this quite a lot, don't we? You've got the bobbly side, which is the gluey side, and then the fluffy side goes on the other. The glue side you want on the wrong side of the fabric. And you're cutting this H640 2 3/4 inches larger than the stocking, because that's for the cuff. So you'll see where we're going with that later. And then I'm going to try and line this up so that you do it like this. This is how the pattern said to do it. The only thing with doing it this way, when you put it together, it does give you a raw inside seam, but that's okay, because no one's going to, when you say no one's going to look inside, you do actually look inside a stocking, don't you, when you're putting the prezzies in or getting them out. But this, I'm just following the pattern as much as I can. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm lining up the backing fabric, which is the lining, the H640, and the front of the stocking, and I'm going to press. Now this H640 is only fusible on one side, or H640 is in general, so that even though I'm pressing it all together, it's only adhering this fabric to the H640, not that backing fabric. So I'm going to pin or clip that in a second. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is quilt the stocking to start with. So when you're quilting it, you could either do what I'm going to do, which is just sort of cross hatch, or you could do some free motion quilting and go around the shapes, go around Santa and his presents, or you could just do straight lines, whatever, wiggly lines, wavy lines, doesn't matter, it's your choice. What I like about these stocking, this pattern, the panel, sorry, is it's quite big. You know, sometimes when you get stockings, they're, I wouldn't say neither use nor ornament, but they're not much use for getting presents in. Where this, you could actually make someone a stocking and put a decent present in it. Could be something you've made as well, couldn't it? And it's big enough to get actually something in. Okay, so make sure that's nice and pressed, and then I'm going to put all my bits there. Oh, I've got a wheelie chair just run over my feet. Stitch number 1, so just a straight stitch, and I'm going to take the stitch length up to 3.2. Now I've got white thread in here as usual, and that's what I'm going to use. So I'm just going to stitch across just a quilt. Now let me put my walking foot down. If you've not got an automatic walking foot, mine's sort of built in, but I would put that on, because you're quilting 3 layers of fabric. You need to, your walking foot just stops it moving around. Okay, and I'm going to do this by eye. So I'm going to quilt just by eye in diagonal lines, about what, 1.5 inches apart. But as I say, you can use whatever stitch you like. Go mad with your quilting if you like. I like a bit of hand quilting, I have to say. It's nice to sometimes do a nice running stitch, you know, embroider some running stitch. It's quite nice. But you can do whatever you want to. And that, I think, is what we love, isn't it, about sewing? Whether you're using, you know, a pattern like this one today, or you're using a pattern, say one of mine, or another one you've bought. It's always nice to put your own touch to it, rather than it just being what the pattern says. Is there any more questions, Dave, while I'm just sewing away? Or is everyone alright?
Cross hatching by eye would be rubbish. I have to mark it all out first.
Well, I'm kind of winging it, Kath. But it seems okay. It seems okay. I think, yeah. It's easy enough to mark out, isn't it, with your friction pen? So if you haven't marked out how to your quilting, you can just get I'd get a friction pen so that it obviously rubs out with the heat, and then draw a line with your ruler, the ruler that you use to cut your fabric out. I'll show you on the next one. And then you just measure. So if you decide to do 1.5 inches width apart, then you just use your ruler to measure 1.5 inches apart, draw the lines on with your friction pen, and sew across those. So it just keeps you in line, I guess. If you're not too happy thinking, oh, I might get a bit of a wobbly line, or you're not sure how far apart 1.5 inches is. I love quilting. Look at the difference, it just looks so nice. And then I'm going to go, in fact I'll show you how to do to mark it across now. Let me get my ruler up. If you've not done it before, or you're not sure, where's my friction pen? I've got pens and bits and bobs all over the place now. So, friction pens are good because they just erase with heat. So they're no good if you're going to iron your fabric before you sew it, but if you're going to do what I'm going to do, just draw a line and then you can press it after, they're perfect. So I'm going to line it up pretty much with the lines I've already sewn, and it doesn't matter where I start. And these lines are about 1.5 inches. Did I do them? 1.5 inches, 2 inches. Yeah, let's do 1.75 inches. So then I'm following the line on my ruler for 1.75 inches and then drawing the next line to it parallel. So it is definitely neater doing it this way. 1 3/4. And then when I sew this time, it'll be easier. I've got my ruler on that one. Hang on. It's because I keep using it one way and then the other. What's that one? Oh, it's 2.5. I've done that one. I'm going to go with 2.5. Thought that was a bit close. You know, your ruler's got one side's got 1/2 inch, hasn't it, and the other side's not. So I was going by the wrong lines. There we go, 2.5. But you don't have to be, you know, that precise either. I always think it's nice to just enjoy your sewing and not to get, you know, not upset, but too worried about your lines and things. Obviously, if you're sewing things that need to go together, then you need the accuracy. But for quilting, you can just have fun with it. I've lost my foot now. Not my actual foot. My machine. Okay. So you can see now I've got my needle set just to its normal default position in the centre. And then I'm just quilting those lines. And I tend to alternate. I don't know if you noticed how one way, I'll go this way. Let me show you on this stitch, on this line, sorry. So I'm going this way, and then so that it just evens out the fabric a little bit, so it doesn't get all bunched up. Instead of just going back to that side and doing it in the same direction, I'm actually flipping my work and then doing a stitch line going the opposite direction, and that just reduces the puckering of the fabric, you know, because you're quilting it. If you are using a walking foot, as I am, it will reduce that anyway, the puckering of the fabric. But just moving it in different directions each time will also help. Because it just helps to keep all the layers flat. It's pushing it in one direction and then pushing it in the other, so it sort of evens itself out, if that makes sense. I'm hoping we'll get all of this made in the hour, but if not, I'll do as much as I can, and then I'll finish it off and show you the finished stocking later. But as you can see, this is why I pretty much wanted to start it from scratch. I'd obviously cut all the pieces out before we went live, but it's not too bad a make in terms of time. It's quite quick. I like a big project, you know, maybe a quilt or something you can be working on in the background. I'm not going to flip that one. I'm just going to, because it's only a short line, just sew that one in now. I like to have a project that's quite big on the go, and then I also like smaller makes like this that I can do in an afternoon, you know, or a couple of hours. So press that out, and then what that's doing is, if you've not used a friction pen before, then the heat that I'm using now from the iron removes those friction pen marks. And by pressing that like in that way, I'm coming back, Dave, by pressing it in that way, it also makes the stitches be part of the fabric rather than just sitting on top. So this time it's the other direction, obviously it's a mirror image. So the H640 I've cut as a mirror image of the other one, so that the bobbly bit, the bobbly side, which is the glue, is facing the right way, and press that so you're adhering it. Now if you haven't got H640, that's okay, just use a medium weight wadding. And then you can either use 505 spray, or you can just pin it in place while you're quilting. You don't have to adhere the backing. I just use H640 all the time. I actually need to put it back on the website. I didn't do that. I put it on last week as part of the kits for the advent calendar, and it's on as part of the kit for this, but I've not put it on as an individual item, so I'll do that. So that's secured there. I'm just going to press this line in because I hadn't pressed that one. I love the blue spot, it's nice. I mean, you can obviously use any fabric for the lining, but I like a spot, as you probably know if you follow me often, and I like the blue at Christmas. I very much like, you know, reds and golds, the traditional, but I do like blue at Christmas as well. So you can see I'm lining it all up now. So I'm lining this top layer that's got the H640 adhered to it, and the backing fabric, the lining, the blue spot is underneath, and then you've got this extra bit here that at the minute looks a bit odd, but that's going to be for the cuff. So it is supposed to be there, and that should measure 2 3/4 inches, and it does tell you that on the pattern. And of course you can always watch this tutorial back at a later date when you come to make it. So let's use the ruler. In fact, this time I'm going to do something different and just do wavy lines so that it's different, because it's obviously got the, you know, 2 sides to it. So I'm just going to do wavy lines on this side, because you'll notice that one's got Santa on and this side is the actual snowman. So I'm literally just moving the stocking underneath in a wavy line. Okay, get to the end, and then I'm going to flip the fabric again. The clips will keep popping off, and then again I'm not drawing these on, you just freehand these. I tend to go out and then come back in, so that that line is coming back in with the previous one, and you see, and then go back out and then come back in. Let's flip it and start out this time. Go back out. Oh, it's so lovely. When you're doing projects like this, you know, your head just gets into your sewing, and it's just lovely. I think because I do a lot of EPP, I don't do as much sort of big projects as I used to. So when I'm sewing like this, it's just lovely. I think, why don't I do more of this? Perhaps I need to do a quilt pattern soon, because I do enjoy quilting. It's lovely, and it just makes the fabric different. You know, a minute ago that was just a plain piece of fabric, and now it really brings it to life, the quilting. It's lovely. Really changes the look and the feel of it. Makes it into something rather than it just being a bit of fabric. Look at that tree, look, with the hearts on it. Gorgeous. That's the other thing as well, when you're quilting you really appreciate the fabric. Wavy lines, and another one. I won't flip the fabric this time because it's just that last short wavy line at the end near the toe of the stocking. There you go. So there's nothing to press out this time in terms of the friction pen, but I'm just going to give it a good press, because then it'll flatten out any of the, you know, where it's perhaps rippled or puckered underneath, and it makes the stitches part of the fabric, so they're not just sitting on the top. Lovely. There you go. How nice. So that's it in terms of your stocking. So we're going to place those right sides together, and obviously you can see your quilting on the other side. Look, I think it's quite nice having one side straight lines and one wiggly. And then I'm going to, I might pin it actually, because when I use the clips, did you notice they were popping off under my machine, weren't they? So line everything up so the stocking is right sides together, pin together, and remember it's a centimetre seam allowance. So you're pinning these together lining it up. And it's 1 centimetre. Oh, that's what I was going to check, wasn't it? Because one was longer than the other. So that should be 2 3/4. Yeah, so that one is correct. And that one's still a bit long. Tells you on the pattern. 2 3/4. So if you haven't got a pattern and you want one, just drop me a message and I'll pop one in the post for you. You can download them yourself. It's not anything I've got particular because I sell Makower fabrics. It's just, they're just online. So what did we say 1 centimetre was? So my machine, for 1/4 inch, mine's set, my needle position is 5.6. But I'll need to come... 4 is 1/4. So 1/4 inch is 6 millimetres, isn't it?
6.4, yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set it as a straight stitch, and then I'm going to just use that. I'm just going to check as a guide. So mine, if I take my needle position to about a 2, it's moved the needle across to the left. So it's bigger than 1/4 inch. So it's about 1 centimetre, but obviously you can measure it if you want to. And off we go. So I just did a back stitch there at the beginning. And again, walking foot is good because you're going through a lot of layers here. You're going through... Oh, okay, Kath. Take care. Thank you for coming. See you soon. Take your brolly. My bobbin's going to run out in a minute, but that's okay. What was I going to say? Can't remember what I was saying now. It's gone. It'll come back to me. So I'm going round, round, round. It'll run out of thread in a minute. I actually, oh, it's run out now. I actually cleaned my machine out this morning. That was quite nice because I've not done it for a while, and I thought, oh, I'll give it a nice clean, ready for the live this afternoon. And it's a bit like when you go and get the car washed. I always think it drives better, and that's how my machine feels. You know, when you've cleaned it out and put a new needle in. I didn't put a new needle in because I'd done that last week because it snapped. My needle actually snapped. I can't think what I was... what was I sewing, Dave? Because you were in the other room and I went, oh! I can't remember what it was now. It was going through a lot of layers of fabric and it just... So I've only just put a new needle in, but it is nice that it's all clean. I'll to clean it for you. Are there any messages, Dave? Because I'm not missing anything. I've put my laptop away. So that's me bobbin full. Job done. It's always nice when your bobbin's done because you know you've got a few miles to go without that running out. Thread my needle back up. Oh. Thread the needle, and there we go. Good to go. So go back to where it stopped working, and again I'm just going to do a back stitch there. I'll just cut this thread off. When you start a new seam, I always do a couple of back stitches, or if your machine might have a stitch on it that secures the start of that seam. Mine has got that function, but I still like to just do it myself. Now when you're going round, obviously there's a lot of layers. So you might just need to lift your foot. If you feel the fabric's bunching up a bit like mine is, just lower your, pick your foot up, push the fabric flat, then put your foot back down and continue to sew. I think that's the thing with sewing machines, sometimes puts people off, that they kind of feel like they're running away with you, but they don't have to. You're in control, it's your foot. It's like, you know, like driving a car. You can pick your foot up and it'll stop, or, you know, lift your foot and it will go slower. So don't feel out of control with it, because you can feel like that. Okay, so I've gone all the way around the edge. Now the only thing that I'm not so keen on with this pattern is you've now got that raw edge. You see what I mean? So I'm going to tidy that raw edge up, but you could put some binding over that so that you're covering it over. No one's really going to see it, but I just think that looks a little bit raw. So you could cover it with some bias binding. But as the pattern says, well, the pattern doesn't say this, but it is an inside seam, so they're not obviously concerned about it. So you can clip into these areas as well, and what that will do, if you clip into those inverted curves, concave and convex, so that's a concave, the convex ones are the sort of outside ones. If you cut into them, then what you'll find when you turn it out, it just reduces the bulk and it sits a bit neater. So I'm just cutting into those seams before the stitches start, obviously, and then turn it the right side out. Now you can check here that obviously there was a centimetre seam allowance that we used, and that seam allowance was printed in red fabric. So when you turn it out, you'll see, I'm going to show you, you'll see how accurate you are in terms of being on that sew line, because you can't see the sew line because it's on the reverse. So when I've turned it out, you can see, and I'm just going to take this back, can you see here? That's pretty much, that's good, that side, but that's not, it's got too much red showing. Now you could leave it, or you can just, like there, look, it's perfect. Or you can just take it back on the machine. So I'm just going to go in a little bit, because I set my seam allowance manually myself at 2 on here. It's just a little bit too narrow, so that's fine. Doesn't matter that you've cut into the seams, won't make any difference. I'm just going to whiz round again, just to make sure. You could leave it as it was. This will just sort of make sure that there's not as much red showing. Depends how particular you are about your seam allowances and your seams. Keep going round, and hopefully this time it'll just take into account that seam, so there'll be less red showing, but I'm not too worried if there is any really now. It's not the end of the world, and nobody else, this is the thing, isn't it, when we're sewing we like it perfect, we like it exact, nobody else will notice. And it's not as though, because the way they've printed the panel, it's not as though you have to join the seams up, you know, the pattern doesn't carry on, it's not a continuous pattern. So you don't have to worry about matching that up, it's just remove that red edge. So that is fine. I'm just going to cut off any loose threads where there are any left over from when I did the quilting. Okay. And because it's double-sided, I think it looks quite nice with that the quilting being different, don't you? because you can have it one way one day, couldn't you? And then you could turn it over and have it on the other side of the mantelpiece, hanging off the mantelpiece, and it looks like you've got two different stockings. It's nice, look at that. I love Santa, look at him, the little Robin. So give it a good press. You see how just because I cut into those seams on those convex edges, it's just setting really nicely on those edges. Lovely. See how nice and big it is as well. Get plenty of Mars bars in there, wouldn't you? So let me just chop that down so it's the same. Now there's a little bit of bulk in this seam here of the H640, so I'm just going to cut that 1/4 of an inch seam off both edges to reduce the bulk, otherwise it'll be a bit bulky in that corner. There we go. So for now that's done, and then we're going to, where's my cuffs, David? I don't want my cuffs. These cuffs have been a pain. I thought I brought them over. There's me loops. Oh God, where have this is about the sum of my day today. Don't know where it is. No. We might need to put the camera down, Dave, so you can help me look. Oh, there they are. I can see them. They're on the floor. I'm going under the desk. It's about sums up my my day today. I've got that many sewing projects going on, things all over the place. So here are the cuffs. So these are cut from the panel. Give them a nice press. These are nice little Christmas trees and stripies and all sorts. So place these right sides together, and then we're going to sew down the short edges. Make sure when you go back to your machine you go back to your centimetre seam allowance. The whole project is a centimetre seam allowance. So I'm not lining this with H640 because that's what this is for here. That H640 at the top is for the cuff, so you've already put your wadding in, if you like. Oh, hang on, that's 1/4 of an inch. That's a centimetre. There we go. And then I'm also going to put the loop on at this point. So this is, I'm going to make the loop, you know, that I can hang it on the fire with. So fold that in half, and in half both sides again, and then top stitch that down both long edges, and that makes your little loop, which is nice. I'm still on a fairly short stitch length here. You can make it longer if you're just doing a top stitch. So that's the loop made. So now we've got this cuff. Going back to the cuff. Now let me figure this out. So we're going to turn the cuff right way out. I'm just going to press those seams down. And this is where hopefully the magic happens. So you want to have your stocking right side facing, and obviously both sides are right side facing because that's complete. And you want, we're going to sew the cuff to this seam here, and then we're going to bring it up and back into itself. So if it's a directional fabric, which obviously this is, then you need to make sure it's going the right way. So it wants to be facing down I'm just thinking about the lining fabric, whether I need to put the lining fabric in. Yes, that's it. I couldn't work out, that's answered my question. I couldn't work out on the pattern why it was asking me for lining fabric, because I was thinking, well, that's going to go back up there, but that's why. So I've answered the puzzle that I wasn't quite sure about. So I'm going to unpick this, because it seems a bit complicated, this bit. I think the thing with, I understand that patterns are hard to write, because what you've got in your head of what you need the maker to do seems quite easy to you, because it's in your head and you think, oh yeah, it's easy, you just put that in there and turn it inside out. But when you're having to communicate that in writing, it's really hard. It's really hard. So I'm not very good at reading other people's patterns, which is why I write my own, because I find them difficult to understand. So I try and write mine as easy as I can. Right. As soon as I could see it, then it made more sense. So let's take that out. So what we're doing is, it is complicated, this bit. We want that and that, so that when we sew this here in a second, that goes there, that will then go up, and then that will go there inside. Oh, we get there eventually, Debbie, don't we? So right sides together, so the fabric's there, right side out for the lining, and then right side down and right side out, and make sure that directional is all in this, is all both the same. Over to the machine. So you're sewing 4 layers of fabric here. So you go down the, still don't know if I'm doing it right.
Have a good look at the camera, man.
It's so confusing. I said to Dave when he came in, this is really complicated, and it's thrown me. I'm blaming the menopause. Gets the blame for everything around here at the minute. At least you can see we all get it wrong. Right. Yeah. Wrong sides. Right sides together, Debbie. Come on, Debbie. You've got this. Okay. Is it warm in here? Is it just me? That's probably menopause as well. I do make myself laugh. Got 4 layers of fabric here, so just make sure, take your time to line them up. There we go. Perfect. She said. Let's wait and see. So, I'm just going to press that. Obviously you will take more time doing this. So now turn it the right way out. There we are. That's where we started a few minutes ago. So you want this, you're going to put the stocking inside that cuff now. Okay, because obviously the cuff wants to be a bit bigger, doesn't it? And then we're going to sew that to those raw edges, and then when we do it, oh David, when we turn it out, it'll be the right way round. Oh gosh, right sides to right sides. I don't know what's going on with my right sides and my wrong sides today.
The tree's the right way up.
Tree's the right way up, you see. That's it. Even Dave knows what's happening here more than I do. And then pin. So you're pinning the 2 layers of the cuff, matching up the raw edges, and then we're going to sew along here as well. It just still looks a bit big though, doesn't it? Still looks a little bit long. But then that's what the cuff is, I guess. Well, we'll see, won't we? You can see I did it. This is real time. I didn't do a dummy run before we and then we also want, oh, I'll do that in a minute, put the loop on. I'm going to take the arm off my sewing machine because I'm going to put this over it so you can get that bit closer. So still a centimetre, remember, seam allowance, and then you're going all the way around that top of the stocking. I don't understand this. I'm going to stop there. We're going to have to do something with that seam. It's not me, is it? Kath will watch this later and she'll say, Debbie, you can see where it was there. It's just very wide. But we can sort it out. Because this side's the same. But let's go to the edge of the stocking. See how big it is. We might have to adjust it. No. So I'm not sewing those edges at the minute. You'll see in a sec. I'll show you. Here we go. Right, let's see what that looks like. So the fabric's the right way round. Everything's working. But these are too long. Can you see? I've got too much left. So what I'm going to do is take that back down, and I'm not sure why that's happened because everything there is correct. Can you see how they're too wide? Look. So I'm just going to take them down to the width, just a bit bigger than the width of the stocking, because they're too wide. So just take that up. I get that the cuff needs to be wider, unless I've just given you extra material. So that's quite a bit wider, isn't it? And then I'm going to cut that seam allowance off, which is not a problem. Maybe they've just given you extra. And then you bring this back up. See how that sits a lot better now. Perfect. And then what you do, you fold this cuff into the stocking. So separate your opening and you fold that down into, well, let's do this first. Press that down by 1 centimetre. So you're pressing that edge down. It's a very clever way of doing it, actually. I've never done it like this before. Well, I've made lots of stockings, but I normally make mine in the same way you'd make a tote bag, you know, where you sew the lining pieces together and then the front and back pieces together and lay them on top of each other and turn it out. I've never done it this way before, but that's why it's good, isn't it, to do something different. So press that down by 1 centimetre. And then that turns in to cover the H640 on the inside. Can you see? And then what you do, you make sure that overlaps the fabric on the inside and pin it in place. Just so that it goes over that raw edge like that. Okay. Personally, I don't like those raw edges inside, so I would definitely go over those with bias binding because they look very raw. But it's up to you. So I've pinned that down, and then now I'm going to, it does say on the pattern to stitch in the ditch, but I'm going to, it should, that fabric there wants to be just below that stitch line, because then it'll catch it when you do your stitch in the ditch. You just make sure it is. Yeah. So when you go back under your machine, you could do a nice decorative stitch here if you want, but the pattern says stitch in the ditch. So that's what I'll do. So straight stitch, I'm going to extend the stitch length, and then start on one of the seams so that it doesn't matter too much at the beginning and the end. And then as I'm sewing here, underneath is that seam. So I'm catching that underneath, stitching in the ditch to create a quilt line, and it's catching that cuff underneath. But like I say, the pattern's quite tricky to understand, but we got there eventually. It's just about making sure your direction of your fabric's the right way around, isn't it? And because it is a directional fabric, if it was the spotty fabric, it wouldn't have mattered so much because it's obviously multi-directional. So I'm just using my fingers inside the stocking to make sure that that is covering, the cuff on the inside is coming below this stitch line. So as I'm stitching in the ditch here, it's catching those stitches. If it doesn't catch them, you can always just hand sew them at the end. It's a neat way of doing it, isn't it, that cuff? You might just have to adjust the fabric there, you know, where we made it a little bit not so wide. We made it fit, didn't we? If when you're making yours you find that I've done something not quite right, then just let me know, because it did seem odd that it was too big. There we go. So let's come over here, and you can see on the inside you've just got a nice, it's just caught it on the inside, and then outside it's stitched in the ditch, which then makes it a nice 3D kind of effect for the cuff. Nice, that looks quite nice actually. I like the way they've done that now. And then I've got my loop, so I'm going to, you could hand stitch this in place. Let's see what we've got. So this is the loop we made a minute ago, and then really that just wants to go on there, but I'm going to hand stitch that on. I like a bit of hand stitching. So you can see that even though I have rushed and faffed about a little bit, it still only took us an hour to do. So it's a nice little make. I'm going to stitch that on the inside. Just fold it back on itself. In fact, I'll just take that under the machine and hold it together. Oh, there it is. Drop your little thimble. There's all sorts under this desk, you know. All sorts. That's why Mabel likes it under there. So I've just folded that seam under so you haven't got a raw edge. And then hand stitch that little loop on. So you can hang it on your little hook by the fire or on your door. My boys had a stocking each like this, and they used to hang it on their bedroom door, so everything else was, Santa used to leave the presents downstairs, but their stockings were on the outside of the door, and all Santa used to leave them in the stocking, it was sort of tradition, he did it every year for them, was left them a chocolate egg, you know, what's it, Terry's chocolate orange. And it's just it was kind of a done thing. Good old Santa. He knows what everybody wants, doesn't he? He offers such a personal service. I mean, even Amazon don't do don't do it to that degree, do they? You didn't even got to ask Santa, have you? Just does it. There we go. Look at that, almost perfect in the hour as well. I wasn't expecting to get that finished, to be honest, but we did. So there you go. I'm just going to give that a final press. I do like the iron. And there you have it. Your lovely Christmas stocking with your loop and that cuff. And you've got your cross-hatching quilt on the Santa side. And then on the other side I've got the wavy line stitching. So it's nice and lined, beautifully lined with that lovely blue spotty fabric. And I've picked that because you've obviously got it here in this cuff piece of fabric, and the sky is obviously blue spotty. Beautiful. Now let me quickly show you. I'm not going to have time to do this now, but you also get on the panel, I showed you at the beginning, I'll leave that there so you can see it, these labels. So you can, one's got the snowman on, one's got Santa. They're lovely, aren't they? That's what I love about these panels, because you get all the extra bits. You couldn't necessarily make that yourself, not easily, could you? So you could either place those right sides together. I'd maybe put a bit of interfacing in the middle, sew around the edge, turn it out, and then you've got a nice label. And then with a fabric pen you could write, you know, to Charlie, lots of love from Mum, or whatever. Or if you're feeling brave enough, you could do some free motion embroidery on your machine, or you might have an embroidery machine, and you could put your message on there, and then you could hang that from a bit of ribbon like that. It's lovely, isn't it? But I actually might, because I'm not, ours will just be for decoration in you know, when we put all the Christmas things up. So I might actually put that on a Christmas card or something, because you've got two then, haven't you? So they could go on the front of a Christmas card, which would be quite nice. But yeah, lovely. A lovely little make for you. So thank you for bearing with me while we navigated our way around that. And as I say, if you buy the kits or you buy the panel, I will put you one of these patterns in. I'll try and find the one with the correct image, but if not, it'll come to you like this. It's exactly the same. That's what the panel looks like, with the tags, a little extra bauble there. Both the front and back are different, and then you get the instructions there. And I think that pretty much wraps it up. See what I did there? Wraps it up. It's Christmas stocking. No. So yeah, I think that wraps it up today. So thank you so much for joining me. I'll be back next week with another advent calendar, and before I go, I've gone a bit advent calendar crazy this year, because they're just such lovely panels, and when I see all the panels that Makower bring out, I just have to have them. So this is also, if you buy that stocking panel we've just done, this advent calendar actually goes with it. So it's a snowman advent calendar, and you make that in exactly the same way. Well, no, actually it's slightly different. It's different to the one we did last week. I apologise. So they're the front of the pockets, and then they go on to the edge of the advent calendar here. But the instructions for that are on the panel. So they're all on the panel. So they are also on the website as a kit. If you wanted to have the advent calendar and the stocking matching, because they're lovely, aren't they? Love that snowman. So everything's on the website. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for all your orders last week. It took me a couple of days to pack them all up, tissue paper, box them up, take them to the post office. We're really good friends in there, me and the post office now. So thank you for that. I always appreciate it. Every little helps when you're supporting a small business. So thank you so much. And don't forget, you're still getting the 5 free patterns. We're getting through them patterns now. There's not many left. So try and get your orders in while we've still got some patterns left. So you get those 5 free ones with your order, however big or small your order is. And any orders over 50 quid, you get your postage free as well. Try and do what we can. All right then, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you the same time next week, Tuesday at 2. Bye for now.